We're recording, so...
Can I just move it right over
yeah.
here? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We are recording, so if you have something to say, please speak up. It's all yours. For the people that will listen to this recording, Reverend Dr. Romie's preparing her meditation cushion, and she's going to bless us from the floor.
I'm going to ask you to move and fill. I'm going to ask you to move it and fill in a circle, so there's no open spots. Even though we know that we'll keep this chair open for Elijah, but so if you could just move a bit so nobody's behind me as I'm speaking, because what we're trying to do is create a circle. If you feel comfortable and if you're able to, you are welcome to join me here.
Is this if you got in mind?
It's fun. As long as we feel connected. So I'm hoping that we all feel comfortable where we are.
I don't like putting my phone on the floor.
Why don't we... Oh, maybe on the table? Or maybe right there?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is that
Yeah.
okay? Great, thank you. All right, so just inviting you all to be in this place with me, in this sacred circle, comfortably. Oh, I'm so soft. I'm going to ask you for right now to put down your pens and pencils, to put your notebooks aside. Because what we're meeting in this circle, and we're moving to the place of the heart, and not working in the place of our head. So as much as you might, I'm going to pray that there are maybe some moments that you come to your own wisdom during our time together, and as much as you yearn to write that pearl down, we're going to trust that Spirit is going to bring that knowing and that wisdom back to you in the exact moment when we're done and you could write it. Okay. And I know as a type A person and a type A student, I know it could create discomfort. So thank you for bearing with me in that. So we're going to begin with a moment of quiet that I will begin and end with the sound of the chime. And in that quiet, I invite you to just feel yourself here, feel your bottom on the chair, feel your feet on the floor, just feeling yourself embodied in this space. We are launching into a beautiful weekend of community and inner work. So take this moment to move into the gratitude and sweetness of the quiet. When Dr. J asked me to share my thoughts and to reflect on the question, who am I? My immediate response was, Dr. J, are you kidding? Like, what? No, I don't know. You're asking me to present on a topic that some of the foremost authorities and philosophers and teachers and gurus and masters and theologians and sages have spoke on and did intellectual query into for years and years and years and years and years. What can I bring to this provocative, deep, wide topic? What further can I bring to this question or this contemplation? I'm going to go and hedge my bets that as seminary students, I bet that you have all looked at this question in your own life, or you would not be sitting here looking into your own service and your own call and your own being with God. I could have prepared a lecture rich with quotes and intellectual bearing. That's not what we're here for. I could have gotten you some amazing quotes. But again, our time here is not spent to be in the head. And I invite you into your heart space. Because truly, when we look at or we answer the question, who am I? We really need compassion. We need self-compassion when we look at ourselves in those deep, dark spaces. I have come to believe through my life experience that the only place that the answer resides for who am I is in the heart. So we're going to start now coming from this heart space. I'm going to ask you to break out into dyads, just with the person next to you. And in that space, we're going to open the inquiry to who am I? And we're just going to look at it with a curiosity. We're waiting in the energy of the question. We are not coming up with a definitive answer. I hope by the end of my time with you, I've been able to share a hint of what I have felt is the answer, what I've come to believe is the answer to that question. So with the sacred number 3, you're going to turn to your partner. I'll put the timer on. I'll ask someone to time it for 3 minutes. And I'd like one partner to ask the other partner, who are you? So, to give you an example, I'm looking at Gail, and I say, don't answer yet. And I say, who are you? She responds. I say, who are you? And I continue doing that until the bell. And then no discussion, we flip, and then Gail would start asking me. So we'll go into that with our sacred time of 3 minutes each partner. I cannot emphasize enough, there is no right, there is no wrong, there is no judgment. First thought, as the Buddhists say, first thought, best thought, whatever bubbles up. It's like we're throwing a pebble into a still pond. And we're just observing. We can't control what the ripples are like. We just let them be. And we observe. Okay. So with that blessing, who will offer? Dr. J, can you time me 3 minutes?
Sure.
Thank you. So partner off, so please face your partner.
Oh, I can't. I don't.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Well,
Julianne,
silly
could
me.
you do 3 minutes? Yeah.
I think everyone has a partner because Julianne's going to be timing, and Julianne and I will do the exercise. No discussion. You just ask the question, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Just continue in whatever feels natural for you.
Just one way, and then we'll switch out.
Exactly. So one person says, who are you? And repeats, who are you? For 3 minutes, allowing your partner to answer with one word. Well, it could several, a phrase. Just we're avoiding big paragraphs and qualifications and descriptors, time of life, yeah, hangnail time or something like that. Like we just really, and just see where you go. Absolutely, this is not a competition. This is just a gentle pebble in the pond inquiry. Okay? So
pick who's going to go first.
So just pick who's, why don't we say that, pick who's going to go first. Just let me see who's going first. Just lift your hand. Who's going first there? Okay.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay. Give us a time and I'll ring and then I'll ring again.
Now. You may start. I'm going to sit in Elijah's seat. Pray. Show first.
Who are you?
I have no idea.
Who are you? Who are you?
Always listening.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Strong.
Who are you?
I'm open. alive. I am smart. It's time.
So finish that answer, and I'm going to invite you to just take a breath now. Take a breath, take a breath. Solidly planting feet on the floor. Stop the spiraling. No projection. Allowing just whatever is to be. Feeling your bottom on the chair. Moving into the heart. And with the sound of the bell, we switch.
Who are you?
Many roles. Mother.
Who are you?
Wife.
Who are you?
Leader.
Who are you?
Spiritual truth seeker.
Who are you?
Reverend.
Who are you?
Counselor.
Who are you? Who are
Spiritual
you?
being. Experience life.
Who are you? Who are you?
It's like easier one.
Who are you? Who are you?
Follow the path.
Who are you? Who are you?
Traveler on a journey.
Who are you?
Wanting to be so many things.
Who are you?
Wanting to help people in their
Who are you?
journey.
Who are you? Who are you?
Gentle.
Wisdom.
Who are you?
Pride.
Who are you? Who are you?
Compassionate.
Who are you?
Imaginative.
Who are you?
Others.
Who are you?
Intuitive.
Who are you?
One with God.
Who are you? Who are you?
Child of my parents.
Who are you? Who are you?
Member of my community.
Who are you?
Someone
Who
who
are you?
can have balance.
Who are you? Who are you?
Someone who is always
Who are
looking
you?
for the next best way.
Who are you?
An innovator.
Who are you?
Provider.
Who are you? Who are you?
Speaker, wanting to bring what's inside of me
Who
out
are you?
and share it with others.
Who are you? Who are you?
Sometimes
Who are you?
confident and sometimes uncertain.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Someone loving the journey.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Someone who loves to
Who
be
are
part
you?
of a community.
Who are you? Who are you?
Expression of all that is inside of me.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
A person
Okay, so coming back.
should have said, I am flexible.
So joining together. Does anyone need to get a refreshment before we continue? Please do. Please do. Yeah. That's energy moving. So if you do feel like you have to use the restroom or grab a drink, your thirst, you're having to release, it's all part of it. It's absolutely perfect. So please, please, feel free. How are you, Michael? So good to see you.
I am a student of all religions.
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm going to be talking about that because you know I am. Yeah, still working. Well, you'll see. I'm going to talk about it. Yeah, almost not here. Really close to not being here. Intensive care in the hospital.
I still every morning, you gave me
Yes. Oh, I remember.
and every day I write, and then once we have talked, when I was really not all the way just like transition, which I am.
I just heard that you were doing chaplaincy.
Chaplaincy part-time, and then I have collaborative yogi, and I'm like, forget about it. I'm like, I'm
So bright and beautiful.
so over everything.
Good.
Every day I write that book. I am. And whatever is there, because you told me to do that a long time ago.
Oh,
Not in that book, but I think
wow.
you told me
Yes,
I
yes,
do
yes.
that book. So
Wow,
every day I
beautiful.
travel with that book. I always
How
have that book.
beautiful. Yay.
Some days I don't, some days
Yeah.
I miss, but
Yeah.
but it's like a
Yeah.
practice. I think, so I think I pray for you every day.
Oh my God. You know, I felt the prayers, and I know the prayers brought me through.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually had one orthopedic surgeon said to me,
Trolley tour, and they have it down
the same doctor. Just I mean, I still need
You wouldn't want to walk it, but it's not too
because
far. It's like the old
things are so
hotel.
small.
It's right on the water. Restaurants and shops.
It's all the being. It's just,
It's really nice. There's been one there. Yeah, they have a floor.
Sister, please can we go for a glass of water and talk? Please.
And it's right on the beach.
I
So
really,
excited for the beach.
please,
I can't tell you.
as well.
Yeah.
I was like, we need to stay more in touch.
We do. Well, that's the other thing. I said that to Julianne last night.
So if you're not available, you're out of the loop.
We should, I don't have a yeah, it's just being
Of course, yeah,
If
I feel
did have
exactly,
one.
yeah. But you
If
know
I were
what,
to
but
have
timing
one.
is always perfect.
It's always like,
We know
like,
that.
when you went
Yeah.
it's hard to tell.
I even thought it'd be a little
What you need in terms
Absolutely.
of like somebody just call you.
Yeah, but you gave me what I needed, because believe me, in that quiet, I felt the prayers.
And
I knew that anyone who knew was
I
praying.
kept participating. You know, that's kind of our relationship.
Oh, absolutely, it brings us.
I'm just gonna be here about it. And then, but you were always on my mind.
And it can change
Far from my
later.
And,
I feel it.
yeah, and I just thought, and then last time I saw Julianne, who's going to be in,
We're just waiting for the bathroom break to be over. That's why
In New Jersey.
we're waiting for Liam. Here we go.
and then I thought we should all stay in touch, but we'll figure that out.
Definitely. Okay, so I think we're all back and we've refreshed and we've moved that energy that came up. We've either released or done things or quenched our thirst that come up. It's very typical in that exercise to live that. So we're going to have like a little plenary discussion now around what ripples did you notice? And less about the descriptors, because I bet a lot of those were universal, and more about what was the process of revealing yourself, not even so much to your partner, which is vulnerable, but revealing yourself to yourself. because that's what happens in that practice. So, can anybody was uncomfortable? Show of hands? Okay, yeah. Tell me your comment.
I thought it would be easier, and
Thank
so
you.
I went into, well, I know lots of adjectives, but it was this dance of who I know myself to be
Yes.
out in the world and who I've grown into.
Yes.
But then that other part, as you got deeper, it kept coming up with other pieces, and then I'd almost get stuck in my words of, wait, what is that? You know, and then, so it was that back and forth between where I'm confident and who I say that I am,
Yes.
and then those pieces.
Yeah, thank you for that,
It's
Michelle.
very interesting.
Very. Is anybody else? Can anyone else? Did they feel that same ripple as Michelle? A similar finding words coming up that were interesting, or the order of the disclosure interesting, or maybe I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joyce.
I just kept on going. My first one was Taleb de Chardin's, I'm a spiritual being going through a human experience.
Yes.
And, how easy it is to get pulled into the material world.
Absolutely.
And just kind of stay in the spiritual. And, we're just part of, I just kept on going back to a part of the source. And it was, because it's so hard to live in this world. So
Yes.
it's refreshing to know that we're just here for a short period of time.
Yes, and to be able to share that piece yourself. Thank you, Joyce. Anyone else?
I have we've been doing this for a while, and yet relinquishing the attachment to placement in a hierarchy.
Yes.
And releasing, surrendering as you said, the worldly attributes, competition, fear, greed, anger, all of that has to go away when you're in connection to the alignment of your true self.
Absolutely.
So surrendering
For sure.
is just such a big deal.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, very, very true. And what I'm hearing a lot of you say is that it's this wave of sort of kind of this wave that goes in and out between the external, internal world, and the macro, the micro. And we actually do move through the cellular, the body, the system, the societal systems, to use those descriptors. And they do come in waves and round again. And round again, because I know even in my experience with my dear Crohn's sister and one of my dearest friends, Julianne, who knows me very, very, very well, as I was naming, I was looping. I would be firmly in the spiritual, firmly, and then go to something that was more external that anyone would notice just by meeting me, and then diving deep. So that movement, and we have no judgment around that. It is what it is as we move through. So holding that experience. Does anyone else have any comments before? Yes, Lane.
I found it interesting at some point. I didn't have words in it. And it wasn't that it felt more like I was so present that I didn't have the words for it.
Thank
and
you.
I didn't know how to describe that.
Yes.
To
Yes.
keep Michael connected to me.
And what you're describing is the nothing that is everything. I'm going to be talking later about being stripped naked. That's that place. So profoundly vulnerable and rich. Thank you. Thank you. So holding the experience that you had will continue. So when Dr. J and I spoke about my sitting in this space with you, is he in the room? Oh, okay. Cover your ears for a minute. So when Dr. J and I talked about this, he very gently, in what I have come to call the velvet hammer way, he nudged me. Tell your story. Does anybody else know the velvet hammer,
Yes.
Dr. J? We love him. So that's how we'll begin, with me telling my story. About a year and a half ago, I was crossing the street. I was in Durham, North Carolina, and I was, I'm just going to, can I ask you to move over there just so you're not behind me? Thank you. Sorry, just give her a minute. Thank you, hon, so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. So I was going to a birthday dinner that was celebrating my eldest daughter's birthday. She was turning 36. I was laden with a beautiful, sparkly, anybody who knows me knows I love birthdays. I do it up with the gifts and the wrapping and the silver, and we're celebrating a birth. It's fantastic. So I was in the crosswalk, and a car jumped the red light. He hit me, and then sped away. It was guessed that he was traveling about 30 miles an hour. I felt a thud, and then blackness. Blackness until a gentle Samaritan stroked me to awakeness. Time was moving, frame by frame. A pebble in my fingertip flicked. How did it get there? Seeing the deep depression it leaves, I notice I'm on the ground. I'm on the ground? Oh, please, shh. Quiet the uproar of the screaming onlookers. I cannot hear my own thoughts. The siren comes closer. There's red lights. My head is pounding. And with the help of otherworldly adrenaline, I defy the voices, both inner and externally, that tell me stay on the ground. I prop myself up and I hear an internal sound that is impossible to describe, but I gestured with a whisper. Broken. Generally, when we ask, who am I? Very similar to our exercise, a list of nouns and adjectives pour out. We describe who we are by our gender, our culture, what we do, our job, our degree title, by even what we possess. I'm a homeowner or a renter, even by the state we live in. I'm new to North Carolina, and I'm not quite used to it, but I hear quite a bit North Carolinian. There's a lot of state pride there. We take IQ and EQ tests to figure out how smart and savvy we are, or not. We take Facebook quizzes. We check our astrological natal chart. We look to the tarot to learn more about ourselves. We take Myers-Briggs to be reduced to four initials, telling us who we are and how we function and how we shall be. And we take Enneagram tests to find out about dynamics. Would you be surprised to know that National Geographic right now just launched a campaign for people to describe themselves with the hashtag #IDefineMe. In daily life, we use talismans, rings, jewelry, clothing, beads, robes, stoles, statues, to remind us of who we believe ourselves to be. And I know I'm in good company here because I know we all do it here, especially. I'm here right here doing it. To mark who we are to others. We cling to the descriptors because without them we are faced with the void and the mystery of who we truly are. When the car hit me, I was broken. Many bones were broken. Many organs were bruised. I had a severe head hematoma and concussion. My lung was punctured and collapsed. My access to breath was extremely limited. As time passed, my spirit fractured. My faith in a safe world was shattered. And as I sit here now with you, I am still in active care for PTSD, for acute social anxiety brought on by being homebound, and I am anticipating my appointment with a neurocognitive specialist. And I have to tell you that if you know me well, you know that I never speak with notes. So I thank you for the allowing that I have these in front of me, but my memory was definitely affected for now, temporarily. It won't be forever, I affirm it. I am anticipating a complex shoulder surgery and an experimental hip procedure. On October 29th, 2016, I was catapulted, both literally and figuratively, into the void and mystery. All the descriptors I knew myself to be were obliterated. My who am I was answered with pain, loss, and fear. I'm going to ask you right now, in the privacy of your own mind and heart, to close your eyes. I have my eyes closed too, to give you privacy. Take a breath. And I'm going to ask you to just stick like a pinky toe. You don't have to dive too deep, because we don't have the time to do the repair and the closure. But just bring yourself into some thoughts of a time in your life that you suffered, that you felt deep despair, that you felt fear, or alone. Perhaps a time that you lost faith, lost a sense of who you were. And I'm going to give you a few seconds to just bring those thoughts forward. And in the space of remembering, we pray that our God, who goes by so many names, is here with us, holding us, allowing us to remember these memories with a light touch and with ease, release, and a knowing that we are here present to each other, to our current place of wholeness and presence. And with this prayer, I invite you to come back. In Jesus and the Disinherited, Howard Thurman writes, quote, "Fear is one of the persistent hounds of hell. And if hell is a place where our prayers are lost into a non-responsive void and our sense of self is annihilated, I was there. As it turns out, thank you, I was a visitor, not a permanent resident of that hell. And I believe I'm not alone in being a visitor there. As a lifetime journaler, I'd like to share with you an excerpt of a very private entry written about a month after my injury. And I couldn't hold a pen and paper, so I dictated into my phone. And it begins. Each moment I must recognize the space between the now and the not yet. Sitting with my recovery presenting itself in micro achievements and in milliseconds. Able to eat without nausea. Standing or sitting down without vomiting from the internal firecracker sending tsunamis of pain through my body. Experiencing the flashback fugue of the thud, followed by flight, and then no breath, and my heart hammering, and a blurring fog of fear that transports me away from the loving care of my helping family. terror at night that leaves no space for God or safety or faith. God, where are you? I am swirling and have no anchor in you. I am drowning and have no floating tether. The ever-present choking phlegm that chases just behind a cough, threatening to literally drown me. And its terrifying presence each time a small tickle rises up my throat, trying anything within limited right-hand reach to quell the sensation that will most likely start full-out panic in its wake. Sometimes the lozenge sip of water, dabbing with a tissue helps, and the juicy, thick drowning from the inside out feeling passes. Hearing the snap, crackle pop of the bones still broken. Sitting with the searing pain, listening without reprieve to its cry, the discomfort anchoring me here, every inch of movement, of breath, even tears, a challenge. For over a year, I asked, who am I? I needed a mooring desperately. I asked, who am I without the ability to work, without an income, without the strength or opportunity to do service? I was no longer able-bodied. I couldn't shower, dress myself, or comb my hair. And as someone who has all my life had 2 or 3 books going on at all times, I couldn't read. I'm pretty chatty, and I wasn't able to speak beyond a few words at a time. I was homebound, but I have to tell you, in a big victory last week, I drove for the very first time a 1/4 mile from my house to my daughter's house. Under the influence of unrelenting unsafety, my primary love relationship ended abruptly, and then I was no longer a partner. As a mother of 4 and a caretaker, at my core, I was being taken care of. I had been a daily meditator and could no longer sustain my sitting or my concentration or my breath. All I knew about myself became non-existent, and I went into a savage dark night. And in that dark night, I lost hope, and the narrative that I had written for my life vanished. It was sucked into the void. I was sucked into the void beyond a concept. It was like I walked into a room with the light suddenly turned off. I was submerged into inky blackness, completely disoriented, ungrounded, experiencing complete heartbreak in this unfamiliar space. In my DMin dissertation, I explored the true self and the false self, the who we think we are and who we truly are. For 2 years, I read about this, I researched, I witnessed, I wrote, I reflected on all my previous challenges, and I culled and reflected on all the suffering that I had witnessed in my healing clients for over 15 years. All of that could not prepare me for the stripping away of my faith and my story. We tell stories about ourselves, about others, about relationships, about what makes us worthy and special and enough. In claiming all of our wholeness, I have come to believe and know that we must go through an intimate knowing of our own shadow. And that shadow sometimes is only revealed in the journey of the dark night. Even in its blinding blackness, it speaks. I am weak. I am broken. I am not safe. I cannot trust my judgment. It becomes an unchecked, defeating narrative. For me, the journey into the dark night brought such steep disorientation and ungrounding. Imagine walking from a sunny yard into a pitch-dark basement. Those first moments, we blink, but we cannot see. We want to step forward, but we're afraid we're going to bump into some furniture just ahead that's unseen, or we might miss a step that sends us tumbling. Feels very dangerous. Slowly though, just as in that dark basement, my spiritual eyes adjusted to the dark. And somehow in those many months, I started to acclimate and orient to this new world of complete dependence, vulnerability, and unknowing. And in that, I began to learn the answer of the who am I. My suffering in the dark brought a full acceptance of my shadow. And it was the shadow in the world. It was a loss of innocence. It was not until I leaned into this foreign world, each day focusing an hour at a time to survive, very unglorious and very stumbling, that I reclaimed and remembered God, the wholeness, the strength, the resilience, the determination to heal myself. Paulo Coelho in The Alchemist wrote, "I do not know if the desert can be loved, but it is in the desert that my treasure lies hidden." Finally, for me, one day the treasure was revealed. In that shadow, I began to truly experience the glimmer of knowing. Who am I is only answered by the who I am. Who am I is an inquiry. It's seeking. It's informed by others, by society. It's limited by word. The who I am is embedded with the I am presence. The I am is declarative. It is a statement revealing our divine nature. It hints at the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega, the everything of the divine. The who am I is tied to structure. The who I am is unstructured. That's what makes it so scary to look at and be in. The who am I is finite. It's limited. It's constricted. The who I am is eternal and unlimited and spacious. The who am I is defined, it's boundaried. The who I am is ineffable and boundless. The who am I is weighty. The who I am is free and light, formless. The who am I resides in our thought body. It is rooted in fear, in our humanity. The who I am is in our etheric, our core realm. It is rooted in love, and it is the divine. The who am I is rooted in stories and illusions. The who I am is the truth, the whole of who we are, stripped down till we have no words, till we enter that space. It is in the merging of the who am I and the who I am that we are called to mastery. How do we do this? I believe for each person it's different. For me, it was through intention, through the persistent voice of survival, through spiritual practice, and I had to find a lot of creativity around that because anything that I normally did, I could not do. The victory that you are looking at sitting on this cushion, and that is why I was called to do this presentation here, humbly, from the ground, fully in my mastery and in my able body. defying the laws of medicine. I should not be, my hip is dislocated. I should not be able to sit like this. I have 4 major tears, 1 complete and retracted. I should not be able to do this. How? It is through the I am that the miracles occur, that the miracles are claimed and lived. And as future ministers and as current ministers, well, we're all ministers. For you to be here, you've been anointed from the moment of your birth. And as ministers, we are called to be the I am, the miracle, that the exercise that we did at the beginning, that beautiful ritual that Dr. J brought us to, bringing the light up, that is the I am, the declarative. It was beautiful to hear the declaration of I am in that light. For me, I went through a huge crossroads of choosing love over fear and tremendous surrender. When the who am I becomes inherently informed by the I am, by living as Dr. J describes in that beautiful poetry he's composed. When we live in our divine heart and mind is when we are in that place of the I am, and when we can lead people to that place, be with people in that place, create communities of the I am, beginning with the tiny space of emptiness within us. It is from that place of free and liberated light, despite any circumstance, that we come to know the God of Exodus, the God that spoke to Moses and said, I am that I am. And inherent in God's promise to Moses is, I am with you in the exploration and the journey. I am with you in the void, in the emptiness, in the fear, in the desperation. I am with you. So sitting now, right now, in your own I am, I'm going to ask you again to go inward, closing your eyes. When you say and you claim the glorious I am of the truth of who you are, allow an image to come forward, a real, solid image. Something real that you can hold and use as a resource. No judgment over the image. It could be a tangerine, and that could be godly, and is. So anything that you come up with in your I am image is perfect. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. And in that I am image that you are holding, I'm going to invite you, as we began, to close with a moment of silence, affirming your own I am, and inviting you that on our human journeys there will be times into the back alleys and the darkness. Use this image that you've come up with, this image of your heart, after moving into the compassion of hearing my story, your beautiful compassion. Allow that image to be there for you in your moments of darkness. So affirming this, letting it settle and be in our energy and in our hearts and deepest parts. I'll sound the bell that begins the silence, and then end the silence with the sound of the bell again. Taking a moment to be here. When you're ready, join the circle, and I'm very willing and very open. What time? 1:49. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. Be very happy to answer any questions, entertain any comments, discoveries, responses. Let's make sure everyone's here. Are we ready to launch into our questions? Okay, Julianne. Thank you, honey. Speak up so they can hear you.
Can you talk a little bit about surrender?
Thank you. So the surrender that I refer to is not the white flag, I give up surrender. It's the surrender that is embedded with the knowing that as I jump off the cliff and look down into the ravine with the shards of glass and razor blades, that I know that there are holographic stones that will appear. So it's a surrender that says, I can't go anywhere else. I must step forward off this cliff. It reminds me, I had a dog once, his name was Toby. He was blind and deaf. He was a little Shih Tzu. God, he was so dear and so sweet. I tried many times when he was being let out to go potty. I tried many times to pick him up and put down. And he would wiggle and worm and do his, Shih Tzu thing, and just he did not want to do it. So finally I thought, well, what the heck's going to happen here? And I'd put him on the first step, and there were 3 steps. And without a doubt, that is what he wanted, the independence and the affirming surrender, where he came fully into himself. Because Lord knows, that dog stood on the edge of that step and literally launched. He had no idea where he was going to land. Sometimes he landed in the second step. Sometimes he landed on the gravel. Sometimes he landed on the soft clove, little 4-leaf clovers. And sometimes it ended up badly, but every day he did that. That is the kind of surrender that I'm talking about. The surrender that says, I'm going to do it even though I am frightened. I'm going to do it because I know that I'm in my power. I'm not going to give up. And I am here to tell you, I had moments where I wanted to give up. I was complete in that dark night with suicidal ideology. Fully. The pain was almost too much to bear on every level. But there was that moment of saying, I'm going to put my Toby on. I'm going to get on that step and leap and see what happens. And I had times, even in physical therapy, I should still be in physical therapy, but because of insurance, my physical therapy abruptly ended 2 weeks ago. But I was in physical therapy for all these months, twice a week, and I still need it, but thank goodness I know enough of my extras, I'm doing them. But there were times in physical therapy, I fell. I literally fell when she was working on my head. And there were times in physical therapy when I started with aqua therapy. The water hurt my body. If anyone knows, are there any doctors here? So I know a little bit too much about bones now, but when you take a chicken bone and you do a wishbone and you go like this, that's like a fracture. It's broken. When you have a comminuted fracture, what that means is you take the chicken bone and you smash it on the table, it breaks apart into a lot of pieces, can't find its way back together. and it's pretty bad. I had 8 comminuted fractured ribs, anterior and posterior, both. I could not breathe. I had a comminuted fracture of my clavicle. You could still, it feels better when it's warm, but it's still interesting to me when people see the lump there. People, oh God, it grows. No, it's my bone. So there were times, even in physical therapy, those first times, just walking into the pool, I would stumble and then just walk. My physical therapy was walking an inch, walking an inch, walking an inch, walking an inch. I had to surrender to patience. And I am a patient person, but good Lord, I learned a lot about patience. And in surrender, there is patience required. Any other questions?
No, but I want to affirm everything you said about seeing in the darkness, like gaining your sight back in the darkness, and about the surrender that you just talked about. I didn't have happen to me what happened to you, but I had the loss of my community and my work and my life at one point, and had a similar experience. Not in my body, but in my body, my other body. And we have to be willing to see in the darkness, which means you have to be willing to be in the dark. And it just made me reflect on what we're doing here this weekend about inner reflection, that we have to be willing to be with that.
Yes.
And what do we trust there? You could put words on it, but it's eventually you see in the dark. You don't work on trying to turn the lights on. And I think a lot of times as ministers, we get very busy trying to turn the lights on for everybody.
Yeah, very true.
Oh, fix this, fix
Very
that,
true.
da-da-da. And we don't just keep pointing to the light and encouraging people to be in their darkness, trusting that the light will come. And the people that have made the biggest difference with me, and I probably the same for you, are not the people who are the people who said, like, well, eventually you'll just have to trust. Eventually you'll have to find your way.
Or you don't.
Or you don't, right? Or you
We have
won't.
that's
or you
that's
won't,
free
and
will
leave
versus
you
divine will.
Right, and
We have
leave
the
you
will.
to it. And I think we have to learn how to be that for other people, to leave them to it, like to leave them to the surrender in a sense,
Thanks.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, very affirming.
Thank you.
What
Thank
you're
you.
saying and what you. My thesis was on I am, and the way you distinguish who I am and who am I is very, very powerful way to think about it. Because here in this world, we're not going to resolve. There's always going to be duality here. There's always going to be broken and whole. There's always going to be good and bad. There's always going to be safe and unsafe, shattered and together. There's going to always be that. That's what this is. This doesn't. No amount of faith clears that up.
Absolutely.
Faith is something different in the space of that. So very powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And something you said reminded me that when we're in the dark, we're wired with our reptilian brains to really be afraid of the dark. So we do a lot to get the light on and to stay out of the dark. I remember when my 4 children were growing up, and any of you you don't even have to be a parent to know, you just had to be a child to know that it feels like, the boogeyman's in the dark. It feels like there's monsters under the bed. It feels like there's something in the closet, something's going on. So that, because we lose control. And once we lose control, and again, back to the moving from structured to being unstructured, the only way to go to being unstructured or being okay with the dark is to float. And think about when you're in a pool. We should all have a pool party. That should be how we end, I think, on Sunday. That we should all just go and float. We should all float, because it's in the floating that is the place of surrender. It's uncomfortable. We feel like we're going to any minute. I mean, come on. How many of us have floated and then, I mean, I don't care how good a swimmer you are, but we've all had the experience that, let's say we're floating and we feel something move past us. We could try to get our foot down. Then we get foot down, then we get all out of balance, and then we go top. It's so easy. And it is that tenuous, and that's what you're pointing to, Gail. That tension between the structure, unstructured, between the light and the dark, the illusion and what we think is real, which is actually the same. But we hold these tensions and the duality and the polarity every minute. We do every minute, and that's where, again, we're divine will versus free will. Where are we going to move? How are we going to operate? What are we going to do? How are we going to be present? Yes?
I guess, how did you handle that it was a hit and run?
Oh, great question.
And what would you say to that person or persons?
It's a fantastic question. Thank you. The thing that surprised me, because of course my energy was going toward just breathing, so, but the people around me who loved me, they were furiously angry at that driver. Oh my God, Julianne's not. Oh my God, my girl in the corner there had a few choice words for the driver. The people who loved me were so angry. And did I feel angry? I'm in therapy, of course, and I'm working with a shaman as well, because I'm going to the underworld quite a bit, and I have been for about a year doing ancestral healing into the future and into my generation's past. That helped me understand what actually happened when I got hit by the car in terms of an ancestral pattern and things like that. But I never felt angry at the driver. I felt angry at the injustice that the police officers never looked for him. But I moved through that anger, because I have a deep sense that that anger was quickly chased very early on. I didn't carry the anger very long, but very quickly displaced by compassion, because I thought, how can a person hit another human being? I was tossed like 9 or 10 feet up in the air. I'm 115 pounds at 30. I have had almost every doctor. I was in intensive care. I was in the trauma unit. Every doctor. I was in a hospital bed for 6 months. Every doctor said to me, we can't believe that you weren't killed. There was a piece of my clavicle that was a shard. It's still there. It needs to be operated on, but it's not moving, so they're okay with it. And it kind of formed to the rest of it, so it's not migrating. It was right near my vena cava. Bye-bye, life. I mean, that's all. That could have been cut, and I could have bled out in a second. I pray for the driver, because I believe that if he's had that kind of, and I forgive him, and I moved through the forgiveness through compassion, because I realized, what kind of life could he have had to see a human being tossed up and fall to the ground in a crumpled mess? And it's interesting, he did put his brake. We've determined through my EMDR sessions that he did put his brake on. He hesitated after he hit me. And actually the Good Samaritan who came that I talked about, that stroked my arm till I opened my eyes, he jumped in front of the car and hit the hood and said, "You hurt this lady." And the driver backed up and went around him. I have so much gratitude that he didn't press the gas and kill that man. That he didn't kill the Good Samaritan. Because the Good Samaritan...
Was it he? You know that?
Yes, there were enough witnesses. It was a young man.
I might be living with thinking he killed you. As a husband.
Yeah, I wonder. I do wonder.
Question. I was just saying, you might be living with thinking that he actually killed her. I mean, does he know the result? I mean, was always looking over his shoulder, for sure, looking over his shoulder.
Well, the police feel, there was another Good Samaritan that chased after the car at top speed, a Marine, who was this able, just incredibly strong young man. And he came back collapsed in tears, they told me. I was already on the way to the hospital because he was so frustrated. There was a car that met the description to the bumps and dents that was stolen from Charlotte, North Carolina the day before. And it was a paper plate. So they knew that he had stolen the car.
So he was a
When
mess
it
already.
reminds me to tell you a little bit more about the driver once we're off air.
I'm curious about how your faith helps you make sense of the suffering and the cycle of it.
Yeah, thank you, Liam. That's a good question. I believe that my faith was resurrected when I was able to become non-attached to the suffering. I was non-attached to it even as I experienced it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, as long as I never for a moment felt like a victim. And I believe that helped. And I don't hold the victim archetype, luckily. I mean, we all have people in our family that, or we hold the victim archetype. I mean, we know those people. They blame the world for everything. And I don't say that with any disrespect. It's just they're born with that archetype and that energy. I was very lucky that I was not born with that. So I never held the victim. I had this experience. We don't call it an accident. It was an intense experience, and I believe I believe it was I started meditating in 1997, and have a guru and a yogi. I did deep yogic practice for many years, and I believe that helped me stay so present that I called God into the moment. I had one moment, one time, and it was a moment of like real desperation. The pain was incredible, and the emotional pain as well, because I was rendered without a home for a while in the breakup of my relationship. So one time said, with so much angst, where were you? Oh my God, where were you? And I heard so clearly, I was right there and I saved your life. And I didn't ask again. I had a deep knowing that was the truth. Yes.
I had a line come to me while you were talking. I wanted to share it.
Yes, please.
Hopefully I get through it.
What's your name? Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. You could take a moment to gather yourself. It may be very empowering to say it in your voice. Okay.
In the dark, instead of looking through the light, switch on. Finally realized you are the light.
Mm-hmm.
In the dark, instead of looking for the light switch, you realize you are the light.
Yes, that's exactly. Thank you. That is exactly perfect. Thank you. And that did happen. Thank you.
And it just keeps on coming, and maybe I need to share it, is that it seemed like maybe you had a contract with that man. So that you could experience, and maybe he could experience what he needed to do. Who knows what that did for him?
Yes, I believe that was a contract. They say, and my congregation always loves my they say, I said, they say that the more intense the experience, the more you can be certain you contracted for it. The little everyday boo-boos, okay, that can be overlooked, but when it's very intense, you contracted for it.
And I there is a big part. I have done a lot of thinking about that, because of course, if I can believe it was a contract, then there's a certain sense of a greater sense of okayness.
Yeah, you fulfilled
Like I fulfilled it. It's done. It's interesting because as I've reflected on that and prayed on it, in equal measures, I believe that it was contracted, but I also have come to understand that chaos reigns and that we can't be certain. And that's where the deep faith comes in as well. And I believe in the duality, both those realities exist. And to go back to your point, that bolsters my feeling around it being a contracted experience, was if I brought you through that day, it was a Saturday, it was so, there were so many opportunities where I would not have been at that crosswalk at that time, including my own daughter, whose birthday party it was, calling me at least 3 times that day, saying to me, Mommy, they'll take us earlier. Mommy, is it too late for you to eat, my partner and I to eat? What? Because it was like an 8:30 reservation. Again and again, to the point where I made her brownies, and I didn't realize at that time she was eating gluten-free. So when she told me she was eating gluten-free, I went to make her brownies. And I made the brownie, I'm a big baker, and I made the brownies in a way that they just were not done in 50, I was like, what is happening? Is my oven going off? I was constantly checking with the toothpick, and I'm like, my God, what is happening with these? I've been making brownies, I'm 61 years old. I've been making brownies for, 45 years since I was a teenager. What the heck is going on? And those brownies, do you know they took 40 minutes? Now, has anybody in here made brownies? Do brownies ever take 40 minutes? And they were not burnt. So those kinds of things that happened throughout the day, I thought, oh my God, someone put me right there at that time. Wow.
Yeah,
so clear.
A few seconds earlier or later.
Oh, yeah. I was in a group, Barbara, of 5 or 6 people crossing the street. And I was the only one hit.
Wow.
Yes.
As I said that, when I experience angels, I get all these goosebumps because I feel like it's their feather or their energy or
Oh,
something.
beautiful. Oh.
And I just had,
Thank you.
because I was afraid to say it because I didn't want to,
I'm
put
so
that
old.
on you, but
No.
I just was like, something just kept on saying to say it.
I'm really glad that you said
And I
it.
think it's confirmed, and I think that person also needed that experience.
Yes,
You don't
yes.
know.
Yes.
Maybe that
I will
person
tell
was an
you.
alcoholic and that got them sober.
Yeah. I will share you something that I wasn't actually going to, but I will share this because I feel like I'm among people that won't fall off their chairs, but or shake their heads or shake their heads. I didn't even say it yet. So you have to know that because I was not given medical permission to drive for all this time, hence, this is a big victory. Me not only sitting on this, but I have such acute social anxiety that I had to do lots of EMDR training in order to be able to come before you as strangers. Because what's triggered for me is I'm not safe. And it's really been healing and wonderful and acclaiming for me. And I have to name the fact that my sister Julian came to my home to travel with me, and that I walked in and this heart is sitting next to me, I know that God is present in this place and in this experience. And I feel so caretaken right now by all of you, by your attention and your love and the compassion that I feel from all of you. And
Well,
joy
we have
and
to-
celebration.
We have to share that before you came, he said, she's coming, and I can't wait.
Ooh. This is amazing.
Well, it's interesting, and I didn't want to say it because I felt like it's just my stuff or just our stuff, but when I saw that, and then you came here, and I said to you, I really had the distinct, I needed you here. It does something for me, and I'm aware of a piece of it. And while you were presenting earlier, I thought, oh, and why did you need me here?
Oh, without a doubt.
But it didn't feel like that. I wasn't going to ask you it, but I just so that
Yeah.
you know, I feel that.
Yeah.
Also, that in
Mhm.
a sense, that's the contract. Of why
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
make it in October? Why am I at this
Yes.
point?
Yes.
This timing.
Such a blessing. And it does speak to the nature of contracts. Because oftentimes, when Joyce brought up the contract piece, it's so often that we understand contracts as being something that's oppressive or something that's going to bring harm. But our contracts, as with every duality, have this piece. Where I got to have a BJ party with one of my best friends, and I got to see and reclaim this friendship that was so deep. The experience we had at the 3 years at Yale, you get turned, I mean, that is a ringer. We get turned inside out, and we went through it together. And God brought us here. And I needed you here. It's amazing.
Wait to see you.
Well,
It's just the beginning.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So Liam, let
thank
me
you.
ask you a question.
Yeah.
As a chaplain, how do you think this factors into the human document? Do you think it's scripted, unscripted, or should we try to script it more?
The human what did you say?
Document.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like a wonderful CPE term. So for living documents is that concept. So it's a story. What's our story? I mean, I honestly don't know the answer. I think that's part of the journey all the time. But I do believe in contracts. So I love Carolyn-ness and the idea where we are where we're supposed to be. And I guess that's why I asked you about the suffering too. Like, how do you make sense of that? How does that fit into where hope is? I think, it's always, for me, it is about surrendering to trust the next moment is what it's supposed to be and where I'm supposed to be, and appreciating like what's there and who do I connect there, who's that community. But I think there's definitely, it's not of my writing because it's too big.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yes.
I'm leaning more and more towards that.
Yeah.
Susan, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm not familiar with the term contract, like this is the first time I'm hearing it. Like I usually throw out the term like ordained or something, So I immediately think like, did you mean subconsciously or consciously a contract? Like somewhere in your psyche or your spirit you had arranged?
I think I think the way I interpret it in this context, and when Joyce asked it, it's a soul contract. Contract that was implanted before I was born.
It was an agreement you made before you came, that you would eventually go through this as part of your soul growth.
And not the you, not the little you, not the you.
Right, not the little.
Not you.
Right.
No, a big
but
U
a
and a big C.
Right.
Yeah.
A sacred contract, more.
One of the things, I just want to thank you so much for the story and the way you wrote it. I too was hit by a car, and I know the feeling you're describing about everyone, the
Oh, I'm
sounds,
sorry.
yeah. But the thing I wanted to mention, and I go back and forth when I think of this contract concept. At one time, I would have thought that, and when it ends well, it fits.
Easy.
But being a trauma therapist, and I do EMDR with people,
Okay,
and it's
yes.
magnificent.
Yes.
I struggle with that, because it's so, when someone goes through these torturous, horrific things, like children being dismembered,
Yes.
that's a contract.
Yes.
So it brings up emotion for me,
Yeah.
because
Yes,
I
of
know that
course.
thought system, it hurts something, I heard that.
Yes. And that's why bringing up that there is chaos.
It's
And
fine.
there's chaos.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
like...
it's the concept of, you know, we're all in God, right? We bring ourselves together, we love each other, like this connection, it's beautiful. When it comes to criminal behavior, hurtful behavior, that's when you travail down away from God, when you perform those acts.
Exactly.
Right? Or you have some chemical issue or whatever. So how can I think that God is all loving would be part of a contractual experience of torture? It doesn't.
That's why, again, bringing up the essence,
Yeah.
this is a very powerful point that you're making, and one that I've really wrestled with. There are things that just happen, and there are things that come from evil. I believe that. I've witnessed it too many times myself, as you have. And I believe there is a randomness. When I say the chaos, it's the randomness of the universe. And when we talk about contracts, do I believe that God is part of the contract that inflicted that injury on me or any? No. I believe that in my soul search for God, I came up with some human conditions that would help me find my way back to God and to reclaim and remember God in this present state. So in that the contract is within the soul itself. It's not.
So the child contracted that? That's a challenge.
No. I'm not
Yeah.
victim blaming. Maybe I'm not describing it correctly.
I just believe that if I want to believe something and share that, I have to test the theory. That's the way I go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I look at it from all these things, like if I'm going to
Yeah.
stand in that belief, that's
Yeah.
why I'm asking,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have gone back and forth.
Yeah.
And since I deal
Yes.
with trauma every day all day
Yes.
long.
Yeah, that's so hard.
If I had said something, anything like, and I really respect what you said, it means that, you know,
Right,
I was
right,
hoping
right,
that it would
right,
hurt you, because obviously there's a place for it.
Right.
And a place where it might not be
Right.
necessary.
Yeah.
And my son came, he was close to death, he was, and I had a priest come in and said to me, he must be really angry with God. And I said, why would I be angry at God? Well, because this is what your son agreed to. God's testing. And I said, God has nothing to do with
Yeah, I
this.
don't believe that either.
He just has a body who got
Right.
sick.
Right.
People get sick.
Right.
And we just look at our body, if it's going to survive or not. It's up to its body.
Right.
I don't believe in the concept
Yeah.
that God says you'll survive, but this one won't. It doesn't jive.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I agree.
Yeah.
Because our individual reactions to our bodies
Very
are just our bodies.
Yeah.
They react to different things.
Shells. And we have
They're
to be
shells,
clear, right.
and some of
Right.
us are some of us have this,
Right.
some of us have
Absolutely.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to actually, it just works my nerves sometimes when she's like, well.
Oh, yeah, nobody ever did.
Yeah.
Nobody would have
Well,
done.
I'm saying-
Oh, it wouldn't. Yes, or it was meant to be,
Yeah, well,
like
I'm
Gail
sitting in the
said. Oh, my
ICU and
God.
people are coming to me going, my son, by the way, did make it, he's 27.
Thank God.
People came to me and said, oh, it's a miracle. And I just looked at the woman down there who's having her son carried out.
Yeah, how terrible.
So it doesn't fit.
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, it hurts when I hear that concept from that perspective. I'm trying to stay open.
First, can I say, I am really grateful for the work you do in the world. I want to say that first, because we need you. We need you. Thank you. And thank you for coming with your vulnerability to share that. Because that's hard. Very difficult. I believe that as faithful people, we wrestle with all sorts of concepts. And when I answered Joyce, remember part of my answer was, but there's chaos, meaning there's randomness,
Yeah.
which, that was a criminal act. I was a victim of a crime. And I swing between those two, the polarity of, was it a contract? even though a lot of things happened that pointed to that. But I also swing to, it just happened. And that gave me freedom. In answering Liam's question, when I said I was just present to it, I just was there. I mean, it was there. I was not attached. It was in that non-attachment. The why didn't matter to me. I think that's the key here. And people try to help by answering the why before you're even asking the why. Like that priest that you're describing. I mean, thank goodness. I mean, well, my sister, whole nother story, said, oh, maybe it was meant to be. Honestly, no, that I had a reaction
Isn't that
to.
what a contract is?
In
No.
this
No.
world, one
Yes.
thing that's.
Let's
go ahead,
explain,
please.
because
Yeah.
this is important.
This is very important.
It's the contract piece, and I'm coming from my own perspective. I'm going to do a disclaimer here. This is my own Romie theology from what I've lived through.
The Bible record, the gospel according
To Romie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thinking, when I sit with this contract business, and I don't mean to diminish what I said, but the concept of the contract, I see it on a continuum. So I believe there are things that we, and by the way, I believe that our interaction with our reality is our choice, and I don't believe, I'm not a strict metaphysician. So I have some struggle with, like the book, like The Secret. So when I think about the contract piece, I recognize that part of the soul contract is also to be in the now and the presence, however it presents itself. Even that, if that includes chaos and randomness, or being a victim of a crime, or loving someone who's a victim of a crime, which applies to me as well.
Hey, Roman, you were next. Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say something, but you were.
You are a different person than you were.
Well, remade. I'm recreating who I am.
I mean, you would not be where you are, and I don't mean physically, but emotionally and spiritually and all that. You would not be where you are without that experience. You are changed.
And it was a quick change because of what's happening, I think, on the energy of the planet. And maybe in this lifetime, I didn't have to. I mean, I really do believe that the contracts, again, are on a continuum. I don't believe that in this lifetime I had to fulfill that. It could have happened in another life. I mean, I don't know. That's the mystery.
Well, that's the point, right?
We don't know. It's a mystery.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. But I agree with you. I mean, I agree. I underscore and affirm everything you're saying, because when you look at, and you're in the midst of, my youngest daughter was also very sick and in the hospital, and they thought she was going to need a kidney transplant, and she was 6 months old, and she's 26 now, so it wasn't like they're doing them now. And she was in a part of the hospital floor where there were many, many children. They thought she had not a benign, but what's the memory thing, a malignant tumor on her kidney. And so we were in the cancer area of the hospital, and I saw many, many parents whose children who lived. It was horrifying to witness and to see how loved these children were and how wonderful and good these parents were, and yet it happened. So it's all part, if we're going to open that soul contract, it's not just about living these preordained, to use that word, preordained experiences. It's also opening up to, it's experience of surrender. Maybe it's not really written in the code of the contract that I had to be hit by a car, but maybe the code or contract or notion or soul yearning, I'd like to put it that way, to go to be brought into the light or to claim my own light, was meant to I'm not, how can I put this? I have never been, I'm very up in my head. I'm very, not head-wise, I'm in third eye. Many people, I could be invisible in a room when I want to be. People really I'm really in that other etheric world. I talk to spirits. The dead come over and chat with me. I mean, so I serve as a medium. Maybe my soul contract was, let me bring a balance to the spirit and the body. Maybe that was the contract. And maybe the way it unfolded was, man, I was very embodied in that. I couldn't ignore my body.
Hey, Romie, let me just say this right quick.
Yes.
The Gnostics have a way, well, certain parts of the Gnostic tradition. It's a broader contract to separate from God and to become human and vulnerable. So, for example, when you win the lottery, you don't say, why me? Right? You get a job, you don't say, why me? You get hit by a truck, you say, why me? Right? So part of it is to come to the chaos, to do something that the angels can't do.
And the grace. We haven't even talked about grace here. And oh my God, the grace is so abundant.
Would you trade one moment of the best moment of your life to say, hey, I just want to come through here real quick and go back to the divine? I mean, these moments are fabulous and beautiful. You know, you meet a great partner, you get the job you want. Okay, then somebody dies in your family. That's why I asked you that question, you know, Lee and Susan. It's part of you said living document, we call it the human document. It's a bigger contract to lead God to come to this experience. And then part of the contract is to find your way back. And was it Joyce that was talking about growth? Or was that you, Joyce? You're saying that was a growing experience? Who was saying that?
Did you like it?
Yeah.
It was mine then.
I think Barbara said.
But so part of it is to grow. And so whatever you are, wherever you are, wherever you're going, you were there before time was.
Yeah, whatever that.
But you wrote the contract, or agreed to the contract to separate. And in separating from the divine, you experience this incarnation with its ups and downs, with its chaos, its yin and yang. Yeah.
And without the assumption, I want to just take issue with one thing. The growth is not assumed.
No,
And it's not required.
Right.
No.
And you could do whatever you want.
Nope.
Part of the free will.
Bypass that.
Yeah.
Take
So
a
thank you.
You know, one thing we need to be mindful of, I think, as ministers is, and it goes to what you're saying, I think, is language. Like there's this realm where we live, where we talk about everything like I did it and we did it and I made a contract, and a contract means that you're signed up for something, and this means that, and da-da-da. And we mix that a lot in here. You know, in the transcendent, there is a duality. There's unity, and in the there are realms that are just realms with no duality. They don't live here. Spirits don't live in this realm. We access that realm for this, and so, you know, what I heard in your story was how like levels of deep acceptance, for example, which I'm sure you work with people about, you know, not like to say, oh, accept it because it was meant to be. That's a human way to say acceptance, like we accept something when we know it that it was meant to be. That's like a human way to think about it. That's different than going through all of this suffering and angst and why me, Lord, and how did this happen, and what did I do, and what did they do, and what's the timing, all these kinds of things, to come to a place where you can just breathe and go, it is what happened,
That's
and
exactly.
I know who I am, and I know who God, I am
Exactly.
available to grace and love and compassion. I'm not going under, I'm not killing myself, I'm not letting myself go under, I'm not going to stop speaking up, I'm not, you know, I've been a communicator. My field is communication and public speaking and workshop leading and all that, and I went silent
when the last time we saw each other, right? Whoop, I went silent, which was to me to be dead, to be broken and dead. And thought, I'll never talk, I have to figure out work that doesn't involve saying anything to anybody ever again. You know, like, okay, that's hard. I mean, that's like pain, that's hard. But how great, you know, to come through and have acceptance. And so then to go, well, was that meant to happen? Is that a contract? Is that, well, yay, okay, somewhere, perhaps. But the magnificence of the transcendent power of patience you talked about, acceptance, grace, these are transcendent
and non-attachment.
ideas. Non-attachment. These are transcendent ideas that we're trying to teach or we're trying to raise.
I want to just bring two books to your consciousness. One is Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts.
Yeah.
The other one is Agartha, A Journey to the Stars by Meredith Lady Young. Our human experience and our spiritual experience are slightly different. The spiritual experience exists outside of time.
Yes.
And the human perception of past, present, future is in fact a little tainted. It's more like cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. And what if the true nature of God is that God is an uncreated spirit that descends and creates itself as us, through us. And in order to learn and experience all nature of reality, it interacts with itself. And so the God as Romie and the God as Julianne have a friendship. The God as the unknown driver and the God as Romie are in a pain experience. And the pain was physical for you and psychic and spiritual and emotional for him. And that's not to say they were equal. So,
and they were all of that for me, so I want to make sure.
So if we step all the way into the presence of God, understanding that where he exists, where God exists, there is no judgment. There isn't really loss. There's only experience.
Yes. And when I keep going back to the non-attachment, it's like it is what it is. That doesn't mean there isn't suffering or grief or horrible trauma. Yes, it's all of that. But there is a place that I've moved to and I'm continuing to move to that looks at the experience, yes intense, yes painful, but it is what it is. I never said why me, ever, in the whole experience.
You remember people saying why not me? But there's the idea of free will, that we all have free will, and we're all God when we're here. And we come into these, of course we call, communication devices. But we just come here so we can breathe here, just like we can take a moon suit in the moon. And we have these suits as long as they work, but we don't know what they are and how long they'll last because they were made by humans. And this is the theory. So when this body ends, it ends. But while I'm here to experience, right? To learn to be part of, to have all these sensory experiences. And part of that is ups and downs, and how we act out our free will. Either I'm choosing God in the moment or I'm failing God. And then I do what's ever going on. So that person, perhaps, if I could just use your example,
of course,
maybe, made a very harsh mistake. Could have been, no reason. Right. But the choice wasn't in the error. The choice was in the staying, right?
Yes.
That's like where the choice was. Like, wow. So I have to.
And that's why that's where my anger was.
Yeah. So he did it.
It was not.
Clearly. And he even had an opportunity. Someone would go, knock, 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 knock. Don't stay. And he still had a second chance and didn't and went. So now from that, you got other people to come and love you.
Yes, without a doubt.
From that point on, right? So we all have choices, I think, in that moment of what it is, where we are, who we are, and how we show up. And I think, I'm sorry, I don't remember Gail. Yeah. What Gail was saying, I think it just has to do with working with people day to day or trying to come in touch with what this means to them. And so to understand that there's no outward meaning that we can make of it. They have to make it. It's just like everyone makes their own meaning.
Yes.
It's up to you.
Yes.
And of course, miracles we talk about releasing meaning is the goal.
Yes.
It's no meaning. Just experience it, and love is what it's about.
Absolutely.
Okay, finding love.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
So if I keep it simple, this is what I found works for me.
It's great. This is great.
Just like, can I love right here? Can I love right here? Can I love right here? God help me love right here. God help me love right here. And don't go to all the other stuff, unless you feel like in here, obviously, we're talking about it and challenging and looking at it. But in my daily life, I don't want to do that. Because in trauma, if a person starts going to meaning, and EMDR, as you know, is working to change meaning. We're looking to change it from being I was powerless and loving and safe to that I have power. That world, this particular incident occurred to you, but it wasn't because of you.
Right, exactly.
And so you see how that's quite contrary?
Oh, it's a big...
That you didn't ask for this isn't your fault.
Yeah, exactly.
And at some level, this person, he was, and by the way, I worked with people who have hit people in there, and usually they check the,
obituary.
they're constantly checking the tape on an ongoing
Sure.
basis, unless
I'm
it's
sure.
sociopath and they don't care.
Yeah.
So you don't know. So it depends on if you have an antisocial personality or not. I'm so sorry you went through that. That's
Thank
just
you. Thank
hard.
you.
Just beats my
Thank
beats
you.
me, it really does.
Do I have to stop?
Go ahead.
Tie up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you go ahead and finish it.
Okay. One last point then, and Terry, Terry, you've been very gently, so I really want to give you an opportunity before we close. Do you have something?
I wanted to mention, there is a very powerful way that this happened to you, but also at that moment it happened to the person who came and approached you. And we don't know where that rippled for that person.
Yes.
It also
Yes.
happened, it sounds like, to your family.
Without a doubt.
And we don't know where that rippled. I know that it's rippling right here today at this very moment. By the choices that you have made, and by the things come to you, it continues to pour out, and it's changed my life. My family was a colonel. And so as I sit here listening to you, I don't mean to add to
No,
the
I'm sorry. I'm so
juiciness of it,
sorry.
but-
No, I'm so sorry.
But what I realize is, as I look back to that moment, this has really helped me, because I have seen that that moment happened to a very, very large community. And each one of us felt something like what you have felt.
Of course.
Like it was,
I'm so sorry.
what was our part in it? What did we bring to it? And to hear that it was a moment that happened. And we could piece all the facts together that you possibly remember being interviewed by one of the officers, and he said, we're going to interview every single person until we figure out how this happened. The sum is always greater than the,
Yeah.
I mean, the whole is greater than the sum of the part. And so and usually the spirit and the grace is in that part that's greater than the sum.
It's so true.
And so I thank you, because it is, listening has made me see that again, that what happened to you didn't happen just to you, it happened to us. This very moment.
Thank you.
And so anyway, so I'm grateful that you shared.
Me too, and I think you changed the lives of your therapists.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. God, it's...
And I just like, I read one that required reading, the Pema Chardron, When Things Fall Apart.
Yes, yes.
And I'm glad it's on the reading list, is that we grow when the chips are down. And my, person who just passed this past, 2 weeks, Sister Madeline, who, her program Shalom saved my life with drugs and alcohol and things, and employed me for 32 years. And her saying was, God writes straight with crooked laws.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm sorry for your loss.
No, I'm
Let me
happy.
see.
I'm happy
She's
for her.
released. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
but sorry for you.
Yeah, I'm happy for her.
Good.
Dr. J made a good request when he said, tell your story.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll end on one little note. Terry, thank you. Thank you everyone for your comments and for your presence here. I feel each one of you and I feel each of your hearts. I say thank you so very, very much. Thank you. Terry, you had talked about that gentleman. I did want to add one comment in about him. His name was Tony, so I don't want him to be unnamed. And he was amazing. He was truly grace embodied. He immediately assessed and made eye contact and made his heart available. So much so, when I was getting on into the ambulance, he was holding my hand. It was amazing. So many months later, when I was looking at the police report, I call my son-in-laws. My son-in-laws are son-in-laws. I'm very, very, very blessed. My daughters chose so beautifully. So I asked both of my son-in-laws if they would go get the police report because I wanted to find Tony to be able to let him know as a witness how grateful I was to him. It turns out that he wasn't on the police report. And I thought, what is happening? So my son-in-law, Raphael, goes down to the Durham Police Department and said, my mother-in-law, he calls me, on and on, so we're talking. Anyway, all to say, Tony was a homeless man. He had no phone, so that's why he wasn't on the witness list. And I was rich with the grace of what is the meaning of wealth and privilege, because it only resides in the goodness of one's heart, despite not having any material possessions.
So you've never had contact with him?
Never. And my son-in-law, Raphael, is actually a therapist. He's a somatic therapist and works in the school system. And he's looked for him on the streets. I cannot find him. I think we're at our time. So may we end with just a very quick, quiet prayer. Oh, many people have said that. Yes, I wonder too. So if you'll just join me in a moment of prayer as we close. Oh, ineffable presence of love. Thank you for the grace, inquiry, safety, joy, delight, incredible sacred connection of this circle. We give gratitude for Reverend Jay and his beautiful wife Dami for their work in organizing and having us launch into with my class this weekend. We are grateful. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Romie.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. You need to check in, right? All your rooms are ready.
I need to check in, yeah.
So can you kind of hurry back so I can... It's hard to go behind a tough act, Romie.
Sorry? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was in and out, but I heard you.
I know.
It was awesome.
When you walked in, I went, trust me. That's what I felt. That's what I felt. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.